Yes guys, good morning. I hope we are all doing well. Welcome back to the YouTube. So, I'm literally just out my morning walk. I'm gonna go through a few updates with you because I feel like it's actually been a while, even though it's not actually been too long, but I am determined to get back to this consistent vlogging because, trust me, life has been lively recently. So, yeah, that's been a mission. So, I'm literally just gonna do my typical little walk, or my new walk, through the park from the Airbnb that I'm currently staying in, but I did want to put a couple of little updates out there because my vlogging has been arguably a little bit all over the place recently, and I am actually now maybe 2 weeks into my diet break for one. So I'm gonna put my previous set of pictures and my check-in video here, and I just want to talk you through kind of where I'm at. So with food at the minute, I think I'm eating about 350, 400 calories more a day. Clen is now totally out, and I am still doing my rest day 25 minutes on the stairs because I actually really enjoy that. I will say I feel like I've properly matured now because I never ever used to like doing cardio, even when I should have been doing it realistically on, you know, rest days just for cardiovascular health and all that jazz. But I actually really enjoy it now. I used to hate it. Like even the thought of like going in, I was like, oh, I was not a cardio bunny at all. But in any case, I actually really enjoy it now, and that's staying in. My steps have been dropped from 12k to 10k, and I'm up on the scale by about maybe a kilo or so, but that is all extra fullness. Like I was actually super happy with my pictures, to be honest. It's definitely starting to feel I looked a bit on the flatter side, which for me will tend to be the case in my lower body, especially because my lower body's a little bit, it's not weak by any means now, but I just feel like I lose a lot of that pop to my lower and my glutes when I have been dieting for a bit of time. So it's been really nice to sort of see that come back in because I've been missing that a good bit, and it actually makes such a big difference as well to like even like how your clothes fill out. And this is what I always say, right, is that it's not when you come out of a dieting phase, whether you're reversing into a building phase or whether you are, you know, doing a diet break or a refeed, your body weight should come up really, because you've got more food volume. If you're out of maintenance, if you're at maintenance, you're out of a deficit, you've got more food volume, you're going to hold a bit more water because obviously you've got more carbohydrate, so that should be expected. And just because body weight comes up, I think psychologically you think, oh my god, like am I going backwards? But that's really not the case. It's simply a matter of just more intramuscular fullness, and that's not a bad thing. That's actually a good thing. It makes you look better. If you find that the body weight's come up and you're eating a little bit more, it is just that extra bit of pop to the muscle, where it's like, imagine like a balloon. It's when you diet, when you deplete carbohydrate, and when you're in a deficit for a prolonged period of time, you are going to start to see that balloon is going to deflate. That's like the muscle. But then when you start to eat a little bit more, put a bit more carbohydrate in, you reinflate that balloon. It then starts to, that muscle fills out, it pushes against the skin a little bit more as well. So what does that give you? It gives you more shape, it gives you more definition, and actually you look leaner for it. So as much as, to an extent, maybe you feel just that little bit more of a film of water, the overall look is actually better. You can't just think about the fact that scale weight has come up as a negative thing, because you know you've got to finish your diet eventually. You can't be in a deficit forever, and you don't need to hold on to that lowest body weight either. Like you can't get attached to that. It's really important. Otherwise, guess what? You make absolutely zero progress. Now, don't get me wrong, we're not necessarily looking to be like in a big surplus at the moment. I do have the opportunity to improve, and I do have the opportunity to gain a little bit more muscle mass because eating a bit more, my training performance is definitely already better, which I'm very grateful for. So that's been going really well. But it's not going to be like this big old building phase, but I already feel like I can make some improvements across these next few weeks before then digging in a little bit more. But to be honest, you know what, guys, is that I am actually quite happy with how I look at the moment. I think that I could probably come in another couple of kilo, but honestly after that, unless I go and like prep for a shoot, which by the way if you are keen to see a shoot prep series for maybe this year coming, drop a comment below. It will have been quite some time. Oh, look at this little lad. Hi. Honestly, guys, one of these days I'm literally just gonna get scratched and get rabies, and it will be a terrible situation. But until then, I will be scratching all the neighbourhood cats. Is that actually something you should just avoid doing anyway? Like, is that something that people shouldn't do? Like, touch the cats here? I don't know. I always, look, he's following me. Oh, I've got a friend. Oh shit. But yeah, like, I'm actually very happy with how I'm looking. So yeah, like, just that little bit of fullness now that I'm a bit leaner, it definitely goes a long way. I can notice a bit more vascularity. I think if I pull off another couple of kilo, I am probably going to be quite vascular, like in my upper body, my arms, and everything will pop through a little bit more. I'm not really that bothered about it. I quite like it. I'm not as fussed about having a bunch of vascularity anymore, like after finishing my competitive bodybuilding days. But genuinely, it's just so nice to get to a point where, like, I feel just good in myself on a day-to-day basis. Like, that was always the goal for this year, is I just wanted to get to a place where I'm not like super peeled, but I feel like feminine, I feel like I've got shape, I'm lean enough, I've got definition. And I think that for a lot of women, that's like, you know, that's like the dream. And then you can kind of move about your baseline from there, whether you want to go and do like a mini build or a mini cut. You're not moving too far away from that like comfortable point, which is the goal for actually a lot of my girls in the team. It's getting them to a place where, one, they feel really confident, but then two, they can then improve around that ballpark body composition that they feel really good at, and it's not like too much of a push to an extreme either way, which I think is so underrated actually. And not to mention as well that the way that I've spent the past few months dieting to get to this point, I think has been probably the most enjoyable I've ever experienced it, and that's been super refreshing. I've definitely changed my mindset a lot from the bodybuilding days of treating every single diet that I do like a prep and then making that my whole personality. And actually, one of my clients mentioned this to me the other day, and she said that the way that she'd watched me do things over the past while and seeing that I could still get so much out of it and I could still achieve the physique that I have kind of inspired her that actually the mindset that she'd had previously before us working together was not really conducive to being able to sustain that leaner body composition all year round, because it was always very extreme, even though she only does it for a lifestyle. So it doesn't mean that obviously you shouldn't be really consistent, you shouldn't be accurate, and you shouldn't, you know, really put all of your effort into like a dieting phase, because ultimately the more locked in you are, the quicker and more substantial the results will be. It's like anything, the more you put in, the more you get out. But if you are doing this as a lifestyle and you simply want to feel really good in yourself all year round, and again, just move around that point where you feel comfortable, it's no extremes, you're able to improve, do mini builds, mini cuts, and you're never really getting too far out of the ballpark where you feel happy in yourself. You need to make sure that the process of you getting to that point is more of a lifestyle. It's not an extreme. It's not your diet is becoming your whole persona. Now, don't get me wrong, it doesn't mean that then you say yes to every single social occasion and that you say yes to every single social occasion that comes your way, because sometimes you do realistically have to say no, and that's probably one of the most important words when you are really trying to make progress and to get comfortable with saying to friends, family, whoever, because you do have to pick and choose your battles. But you also want to live a bit of life at the same time to make sure that in the long term you are just chipping away with no pressure. You're slowly but surely getting to where you want to be, and it feels more effortless. Not that it is effortless, but it feels more effortless for you to do it that way versus having this sort of very like kind of bodybuilding prep mentality around it, which is fine if you're like that. But I think that for some people, they can end up shooting themselves in the foot a little bit, where it doesn't need to actually be that way. If you have the right setup, you have almost checked your mindset around it as well, thinking about what is actually sustainable for you, because everyone is going to be so different. Yes, girls and boys, welcome back to another training day voiceover. So this session, as you can see, was done at Muscle Hut. It was actually a posterior session, and I did this with my client, Orla, who is actually fairly new on the team. At this point where we trained this session, I think she'd really only been on plan for a few days and absolutely killing it. Actually, one huge bit of feedback that she gave me was how much more productive she was, because obviously her meals were accounted for, she had time, more so better timings with everything, and her day just ran smoother rather than it just being chaos and just her generally feeling underfueled. I think one thing that people underestimate is how much of a difference getting on top of your fitness routine, your training, having regular sessions planned into your days and weeks, getting on top of your food, like actually having a set meal plan in place and not really having to think about what you should or shouldn't be eating, or having to like spend a bunch of time or wasting energy with decision fatigue on trying to decide what's for dinner. I think you underestimate how much of a difference that can actually make on other aspects of your life, even your relationships. It can make a difference to your work, just generally to your productivity, and actually often gives you a lot more time back, as well as like allowing you to progress at a much faster rate. So once you take care of yourself, your health, your well-being, you're fueling your body and your mind well, and you're doing things that are generally good for you and your body, everything starts to align so much more with that. And I think being a fitness coach and having coached women for years now, it's something that I see time and time again that I cannot express, like how much of a difference it can make, especially seeing the girls go through that process. So yeah, always food for thought. It never ceases to amaze me, basically, as like how much of a change it can have on someone's whole outlook on life and how much happier they are, and then they attract more positive things to them as well. But yeah, like this was actually a really good session. So obviously we trained some legs. This was actually a posterior session, so it was some legs, and I did chuck in a little bit of back as well at the end, because there was just a couple of bits and pieces that I wanted to go through with Orla. So obviously here's Orla's set here. I'd already done mine. I love this Cybex leg press. Like I come here specifically to use a Cybex, just down to the fact that I adore it. It feels fantastic. I think for a glute focused leg press as well, as a 45 degree, it's brilliant and it feels so smooth. So I just really get on with it. And I also have used the Cybex squat press here, and obviously I've used it in the past when I was training at Rotherham. That was like a staple of mine. But the only thing with the squat press is that unless I have the actual like bit of like the back pad, the extra back pad at the back to put between my back and the actual back pad of the machine, it just gives me a bit of a boost and moves my body a bit closer to the foot plate so that I can actually get full depth without sort of tapping the weight to the bottom, which is just really, really annoying when you're a shorter gal and you're trying to get full range of motion. It's just annoying. So love this leg press. It's definitely one of my favorites, and I use this like definitely once a week in my programming at the moment. So here, what I'm going through mainly with Orla is she trains really, really well, actually. She's got a really good foundation. She just lacks a little bit of confidence. So that was a lot of what we went through in the session. To be fair to her, she done such a good job, because very, very rarely do I see people actually get better through their session, even though they're getting tired. Usually they start off a bit more like all guns blazing, and then they have this massive drop off. So I could tell obviously she was getting tired. We're all getting tired by the back end of the session, but she really kind of stepped up to the plate and she took it on, which was so good to see, because I will always say the most important thing is not necessarily you having the most perfect form in the world. It's you learning how to train hard. Like, you are going to be able to get so much more out of sessions. Like, someone who trains hard is going to make more progress, even if they might not train perfectly, than someone who trains perfectly but doesn't train hard. So after leg press, we had moved on to our favourite Bulgarian split squats, and these, as per usual, are always just absolutely savage. Look at those delts. They are coming through now, guys. Definitely a few of the carbs are doing the business, but yeah, these are brutal as always, but they are definitely one of my favorite movements for glutes. I think I've said that before on the channel, but I stand by that. I think that they're just a phenomenal movement, and if you don't have them programmed in, if you have, like, to be honest, either glute days or just standard leg days, I feel like you're missing out. I do program them for like the majority of my clients, to be fair, because I just feel like if you do them right, do them well, don't get me wrong, the balance just takes a moment to get at first, but when you set them up well, there's nothing else. So for glute focus, I'm trying to keep a more vertical shin, which you can see here. My knee is very much staying stacked sort of over my laces, over my heel, keeping the dumbbell held contralaterally, so in the hand opposing the foot on the floor, and keeping my hand at my heel. So I'm not letting that drop back behind my heel. I'm not letting it rest on the front part of my non-working quad. And I'm making sure as I'm coming down, I'm thinking almost about sitting into the glute on the working side, almost twisting into it to try and get a little bit more of a stretch out of it. So I've got Orla to do this as well. Now, I believe she's a little bit taller than me, but actually it worked out quite well anyway. With the height, it didn't really seem to make much of a difference. I always use a front foot elevation here, typically depending on obviously the height of the bench. It depends on how then high the front foot elevation needs to be. Higher bench will usually mean that you have to actually elevate the front foot just that little bit more, so you're closing that gap and closing that distance, so it's not just like really difficult to get into that bottom position or actually get into that range of motion. So obviously Orla killed that. She trained really, really hard all the way to failure there. And really good to see her doing that towards the back end of the session as well, because we started, she was just a little bit off failure and training a few reps in reserve, which we know that we cannot have. So that was something that we definitely needed to get to work on. Then we sort of finished off the session. This obviously isn't the full session, but we finished off the session with the Citadel. Or was this the Prime? I think it was the Prime. Yeah, anyway, we finished off with a lat focus row, because I think that's really important that we sort of go through a lat focus movement, because it's a bit harder to explain via video. So just wanted to make a point of doing that as well. I'm literally just back from yet another leg session there. I currently do basically 3 leg sessions a week. My split has changed a little bit, which I don't think that I actually have mentioned yet, but recently I've been running more so like one upper body session, which is more push focus. So a bit more, well, not push, it's a little bit of arms, because my arms are already kind of like, they're dominant enough, and mainly a lot of shoulders with like the most small sprinkle of back. That's literally it. So that's my main upper body session. I'll then do 2 full lowers and 1 posterior. So posteriors, it's more so glutes, hams, and then the majority of my back work for the week. To be honest, I don't really have an awful lot of back work anyways, because my back is actually quite strong and I don't really need any more back work directly as per se, or to get it any bigger. To be honest, I don't really need my upper body to be all that much bigger. It's just a matter of just continually try to improve upon my specifically glutes and hamstrings. Just to the mission over the past few years, not just the past few months, has always been to try and make sure that I can balance out my posterior with like the front of my legs, which is my quads are quite dominant. So that has just been an ongoing uphill battle, which that's always determined mainly by your genetics and also how you grow, but we're definitely making some headway with that, because it's been a long time since I've actually done any direct quad work, and I still don't have any direct quad work in now. Now, I will say, given that I'm not necessarily competitively bodybuilding anymore, I do chuck in the odd, more flexible session that I do a little bit of whatever, and I might even, if I am pushing the boat out, I might even put in some leg extensions, but only like 1 set or so, if I fancy it. But I've just gone into Muscle Hut again today just to train, because that's typically my Friday session. So I'm usually doing like a session in the apartment gym, because it's just super convenient. I then don't have a taxi, because I still don't drive here, guys. It will happen. I think it will happen. I need to go and get my license transferred from my UK to my Dubai one, because supposedly when you have like a, well, not supposedly, it is actually the case that when you change to actually having a Emirates like ID or like a visa here, you can't then drive on a UK license anymore. So you have to actually get it transferred. So I will be doing that. I think I'm gonna rent a car and just see how I get on, and just make sure that I feel like I'm not gonna get behind the wheel and die every day. And I actually feel like confident, and at the end of the day, like it's easy enough to get taxis everywhere anyway. And to be honest, I don't even think it's gonna work out that much cheaper to actually have my own car, even though petrol is very, very cheap here. But then I'm not really out and about that much anyways. Like I only really go to the gym. So like I said, I only do 1 apartment gym session, and then I'll do a session at Muscle Hut, 2 sessions at Benoose, and just working the new split that way. But it's still very lower dominant. But in any case, I am now like coming up to 4 weeks at this point, like of this particular clip of my diet break. Body weight is still holding quite well. So I'm kind of low 60s at the moment, but only recently got my cycle, which actually was earlier than what it's been. Oh, it was shorter cycle than what it's been the past few months, actually, or the past couple of months. Typically, as I diet, my cycles do get longer, like further and further apart. So a big part that Nathan and I obviously wanted to focus on, and a reason why this diet break is important for me anyways, obviously physiologically, you need to have stops along the way if you are spending a longer time in a deficit, especially as a female, I think, which people don't tend to maybe think about. And when they spend like literally the whole life perpetually dieting, well, I suppose like a lot of people probably don't necessarily do that because they can't stay adherent to their diet anyway, so they are technically already taking breaks. But if you are planning to lose a good bit of body fat, or you have a lot to lose, or you want to kind of chip away slowly, spending longer in a deficit, I think it is a good idea to put in refeeds diet breaks, because it's been a few months for me now, and obviously cycle length is just getting a little bit longer and longer and longer. So for me, actually just bringing food up, bringing fats up, and prioritizing extra fats, extra carbs, that has actually meant that this cycle this time around has actually dropped off by maybe like, it's about 6 days shorter. It's been about 36 days this time around, versus the past couple months has kind of been creeping up like from like, you know, 40, 41, 42 days. So yeah, that's actually a really positive sign, because the reason why we do this is to give ourselves not even just a mental break, but actually more of a physical, like physiological break too. Because remember, especially as a female, and some women are more sensitive to this than others, but you may find that your body can get quite sensitive to being in a deficit for a longer period of time, because technically being in a deficit is a strain on your body. Being leaner is a little bit of a, it's not a strain on your body because everyone's genetics kind of determine where that sort of happy set point is. But I think you wouldn't necessarily go on a long road trip without taking stops along the way. So when it comes to a longer dieting phase, it's no different. It's the same that I would do that for all of my clients that have more body weight to lose, for example, especially those that are lifestyle clients, or those that have to maybe diet a little bit more aggressively on lower food. So that's the way I work it with my girls, because I think it's always a really, really good idea to make sure you keep those in. But anyway, I digress. I'm gonna wrap this video up now. I have a bunch of work still to do, and then obviously messages to get back to you for the girls as well, to make sure everyone is okay and everyone's kind of taken over. So with that being said, if you did enjoy this video, please like, share, comment and subscribe. I will love you and leave you with that, and see you in the next one.